The unexpected meeting, the monsoon rains, had finally subsided, leaving behind a freshly washed landscape that glistened under the emerging sun. Rajan Malhotra stood at the edge of the Sundarbans Wildlife Sanctuary, feeling distinctly out of place. In his premium cotton shirt and designer shoes now splattered with mud, at 34 he had never ventured this far from Bangalore's tech corridors, where he'd built Nexus Solutions into one of India's most promising software companies. "You look like you're calculating the fastest escape route," came a voice. From behind him, tinged with amusement, Rajan turned to find a woman watching him, her eyes bright with humor. She wore practical khakis, a simple cotton shirt rolled up at the sleeves, and a faded cap that barely contained her unruly curls. Despite her casual appearance, there was something striking about her presence, a quiet confidence that immediately caught his attention. "Priya Sharma," she said, extending a hand weathered by outdoor work. "I lead the conservation team here." "Rajan Malhotra," he replied, taking her hand. "And I was actually calculating how many mosquito bites I've accumulated in the past hour." She laughed, a sound so genuine, it momentarily distracted him from his discomfort. "Only 15? You're doing better than most city visitors?" The sanctuaries. Director had insisted Rajan see firsthand the project his company was funding, a sophisticated tracking system for Bengal tigers. What was supposed to be a brief courtesy visit had turned into an overnight stay, when unexpected flooding made the roads back impassable. "Let me show you what your algorithms will be protecting," Priya offered, gesturing toward a narrow path that disappeared into dense foliage. Over the next few hours, Rajan found himself forgetting about his emails, the mud, and even the mosquitoes, as Priya guided him through the sanctuary. Her passion was infectious, as she explained how tiger populations had dwindled to dangerous levels. "Each tiger has a unique pattern," she explained, showing him camera trap images on her tablet. "Your tracking software could revolutionize how we monitor them without human interference. The system should be able to identify individuals with 98% accuracy," Rajan found himself explaining, surprised by his own enthusiasm. "We could even predict movement patterns based on historical data." As evening approached, they joined the small team of researchers around a campfire. Rajan observed how differently Priya carried herself here compared to the corporate partners he usually dealt with. There was no pretense, no hidden agenda, just authentic purpose that seemed to radiate from her. "Why tigers?" he asked as they sat slightly apart from the others, the firelight playing across her features. Priya was quiet for a moment. "I was 10 when I first saw one, not in a zoo, but here, in the wild. It was just a glimpse. But, ... double quotes." She paused, searching for words. "It was like seeing something perfect in an imperfect world. I knew then I wanted to protect that perfection." Rajan nodded, understanding that kind of clarity, even if his own had led him in entirely different directions. "And you?" she asked. "Why software?" "It makes sense," he replied simply. "Logical problems with logical solutions, unlike conservation." Priya smiled. "Where nothing is ever that straightforward." "Exactly," Rajan agreed, though for the first time in years, he wondered if his preference for the predictable had limited rather than protected him. As the night deepened, their conversation flowed unexpectedly easily. Rajan found himself sharing details of his life. He rarely discussed growing up with parents who valued achievement above all else, building his company from scratch after his father dismissed his vision when it was time to retire, to their separate quarters arranged to a basic guest cabin, and Priya to her field tent. He found himself reluctant to end their conversation. "Will you be here tomorrow?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "I'd like to discuss some adaptations to the tracking system based on what you've shown me." "I'll be here," Priya replied with a smile that suggested she understood his question. Went beyond professional interest. "The tigers and I aren't going anywhere." That night, lying on an uncomfortable cot, Rajan realized he'd scheduled a one-day visit to the sanctuary. Perhaps, he thought before drifting off to sleep, it might be worth extending it to 3. Worlds apart, 6 months after their first meeting in the Sundarbans, Rajan found himself making excuses to visit the wildlife sanctuary with increasing frequency. What had begun as quarterly check-ins on the tiger tracking system had evolved into monthly visits, each time extending his stay by a day or two. Today, he sat beneath a sprawling banyan tree, laptop balanced on his knees. Watching Priya direct her team as they fitted a sedated tigress with a new tracking collar. From a safe distance, Rajan observed her confident movements, the way she communicated with minimal words but maximum clarity. In his world of corporate boardrooms and coding marathons, communication was often convoluted, hidden behind jargon and political maneuvering. Priya's directness was refreshing, if sometimes disconcerting. "All done," she called out, jogging over to him while pulling off her gloves. "Sundari should provide excellent data for the northeastern sector now. You name them all," Rajan asked, making space for her on the fallen log beside him. "Only the ones with distinctive personalities," she replied, accepting his offered water bottle. "Some conservationists would frown at that. Anthropomorphizing is considered unprofessional, but you do it anyway." Priya smiled, unrepentant. "I find it helps people connect to the conservation effort. Numbers and statistics don't move hearts. Stories do." This was typical of their ongoing debate. Rajan believed in data, in measurable metrics and optimization. Priya believed in intuition, in the messy reality of ecosystems that couldn't be reduced to algorithms. Yet somehow their perspectives had begun to complement rather than conflict with each other. They're growing. Connection hadn't gone unnoticed. Back in Bangalore, Rajan's business partner Vikram had raised an eyebrow at his sudden interest in field visits. "You hate insects?" Vikram had pointed out bluntly, "and camping? And unpredictable schedules. Basically everything about the Sundarbans." Rajan couldn't argue with that assessment. His apartment in Bangalore was a testament to his preference for order minimalist furnishings. Smart home technology that maintained perfect temperature and lighting, a cleaning service that visited twice weekly. His life ran on carefully calibrated routines. Priya's field quarters, by contrast, were cheerfully chaotic. Books stacked precariously on every surface, field notes scattered across her desk, walls covered with maps, marked with tiger sightings and migration patterns. She lived by the rhythms of the forest and its inhabitants, her schedule dictated by animal movements and weather patterns, as their professional collaboration deepened into friendship, and then something more. These differences became increasingly apparent when Priya visited Bangalore for conferences. She found Rogan's world suffocating in its rigidity. When he visited the sanctuary, he struggled with the unpredictability, the lack of reliable internet, the constant intrusion of nature. Yet they persisted, drawn to each other by something neither could fully articulate. For Rajan, Priya represented a freedom he'd never allowed himself. For Priya, Rajan offered a stability she'd never prioritized. One evening, after a particularly successful day tracking a new tiger cub, they sat on the observation deck watching the sunset paint the sky in spectacular oranges and pinks. Rajan had canceled 3 important meetings to extend his stay after Priya mentioned the cub had been spotted. "You know," she said, breaking their comfortable silence, "I never thought you'd last this long." "What do you mean this?" She gestured around them. "The heat, the bugs, the unpredictability. It's everything you claim to hate." Rajan considered this. "Maybe I've been wrong about what I hate." Priya turned to face him fully, her expression serious. "Or maybe you're temporarily fascinated by something different. Novelty doesn't last, Rajan." Her words stung with their accuracy. Was that all this was? Temporary escape from his ordered existence? "I've been thinking," he said carefully, "about opening a branch office in Calcutta. We're expanding anyway, and it would put me closer to ... double quotes. He hesitated. "To the project," Priya repeated, her tone neutral, but her eyes searching his. "And to you," he admitted. Their first kiss tasted of chai and possibility, sweet and complex. For that moment, their different worlds seemed to align perfectly, but reality reasserted itself quickly. Over the following months, their relationship developed in fits and starts, complicated by distance and their fundamentally different approaches to life. When together, they connected deeply. But their separations grew increasingly difficult. Rajan did open the Calcutta office, splitting his time between there and Bangalore. Priya adjusted her research schedule to include more data analysis days. In the city, They both compromised, but the strain began to show. Rajan worried constantly about Priya's safety in the field, especially after she contracted a severe case of malaria that hospitalized her for weeks. Priya chafed at Rajan's subtle attempts to pull her into his more structured world. "You rescheduled my presentation?" she asked incredulously one evening, discovering he'd moved her talk at a conservation fundraiser to accommodate a potential investor's schedule. "It's a better time slot," Rajan explained. "More donors will be present, which means more funding potential for your projects." "That's not the point," Priya countered. "You made a decision about my work without consulting me. I was trying to help." "No, you were trying to optimize. Not everything needs optimization, Rajan." These clashes became more frequent as their worlds increasingly overlapped. Yet beneath the friction was a growing love neither could deny. They balanced precariously between their different lives, each hoping the other would eventually shift closer to their center as their first anniversary approached. Rajan found himself at a jeweler in Calcutta, selecting a ring that reminded him of unique, brilliant, uncompromising, at a plan forming, one that he believed would finally resolve the tension between their worlds. All he needed was the perfect moment to propose it. The ultimatum, the monsoon season, had returned, bringing with it memories of their first meeting. Rajan had planned everything meticulously for this weekend, a private bungalow overlooking the Bay of Bengal, far enough from the Sundarbans to offer luxury, but close enough to acknowledge its significance in their story. The ring box sat heavy in his pocket as he watched Priya standing on the balcony, the wind playing with her hair. She turned to him with a smile that faltered slightly when she saw his serious expression. "What is it? You been distracted all?" "Evening." Rajan took a deep breath. The speech he'd rehearsed suddenly seemed inadequate. Instead, he reached for her hands. "This past year has been the most unpredictable of my life," he began. "And coming from me, that's saying something." Priya laughed softly. "I've corrupted your perfectly ordered existence." "You've improved it," he corrected. "You've shown me that some of the best things in life can't be scheduled or optimized." Moving to one knee, he pulled out the ring box. Priya's eyes widened as he opened it to reveal a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds, set in recycled golden, ethical choice he'd made knowing her values. "Priya Sharma, will you marry me?" Her hands flew to her mouth, eyes bright with emotion. "Rajan ... Before she could continue, he added quickly, "There's something else, something important." The moment hung between them, fragile as a dewdrop. "I've been offered the chance to expand Nexus internationally, starting with Singapore, then potentially Europe and North America. It's everything I've worked for." He paused, squeezing her hands. "I want you with me, Priya. We could do amazing things together. Your conservation expertise, my technological resources, we could create global impact." Priya's expression shifted subtly. "That sounds wonderful, but my work is here, in the field. The tracking project is at a critical stage, and I've thought..." "About that," Rajan interrupted. "You could transition to a more advisory role. Conservation policy, fundraising, education, all vital components that don't require you to be in dangerous situations. With my connections, you could influence decision-makers." "Directly advisory role," she repeated slowly, withdrawing her hands from his. "There's one condition to this proposal," Rajan continued, not noticing her change in demeanor. "I need to know you'll be safe. That means no more field expeditions into remote areas, no more weeks incommunicado in the jungle. I've already spoken with several international conservation organizations who would be thrilled to have you join their boards." The silence that followed was deafening. Rajan remained on one knee, the open ring box between them like a question mark. "You've already spoken with them?" Priya's voice was quiet but tight with emotion. "Without discussing it with me first? I wanted to have everything arranged. To show you how perfect it could be," Rajan explained, confusion creeping into his voice. "This wasn't going according to plan." Priya stepped back, creating physical distance that mirrored the emotional chasm suddenly opening between them. "So your proposal comes with a condition. I give up the work that defines me." "Not give up," Rajan corrected, standing now. "Transform, elevate, think bigger. Those are just prettier words for the same thing." Disappointment colored her voice. "You're asking me to become someone else, someone who fits better into your world." I'm asking you to be safer. To use your talents where they can have the most impact." Frustration edged into his tone. "Do you know what it's like for me every time you disappear into the jungle? The constant worry?" "That's your problem, not mine," Priya said softly. "Your need to control outcomes, to minimize variables. You're treating me like another system. To optimize." Rajan ran a hand through his hair in exasperation. "That's not fair. I'm thinking about our future together." "No," Priya countered, her voice steady despite the tears gathering in her eyes. "You're thinking about a future where I slot neatly into your plans, where my unpredictability no longer disrupts your carefully constructed life." She moved to the balcony railing, looking out at the darkening sky. "I love you, Rajan, but I won't diminish myself to ease your anxiety. My work isn't just what I do, it's who I am. So that's it? You're choosing tigers over us?" The words came out harsher than he intended. Priya turned back to him, her expression pained but resolute. "I'm choosing not to accept conditions on love. When you proposed, before adding your condition, I was ready to say yes. To find a way to make our different worlds work together. But you don't want that. You want me to leave my world and join yours." She walked past him into the bungalow, gathering her things with methodical calm that belied the emotion in her voice. "I can't accept your condition, Rajan, which means I can't accept your proposal. Priya, please. Let's talk about this." Panic rose in his chest as he realized his perfect plan was crumbling. "We just did." She paused at the door, the pain in her eyes matching his own. "You once told me you admired my dedication to my work, my willingness to follow my convictions, even when they led me into difficulty. Was that admiration conditional too?" Before he could answer, she was gone, leaving him alone with an empty ring box and the realization that in trying to secure their future, he had destroyed it. Reflection and growth. The Singapore office of Nexus Solutions gleamed with sleek efficiency, a testament to Rajan's vision. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the city's skyline, while inside, engineers and developers worked in focused silence. 6 months had passed since that disastrous night on the Bay of Bengal, and Rajan had thrown himself into expansion with single-minded determination. "The Jakarta team needs an answer on the server configuration," his assistant Divya reminded him, placing another coffee on his desk, his fourth of the day. "Tell them to proceed with option B," Rajan replied without looking up from his monitor, "and reschedule the investor call." "I need to review the presentations again," Divya hesitated. "That's the third reschedule. Mr. Tanaka specifically mentioned he won't be available again until next month." Rajan finally looked up, noticing her concerned expression. "Fine, keep it. I'll be prepared." After she left, Rajan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his tired eyes. The expansion was proceeding exactly as planned, ahead of schedule. Did budget, with performance metrics exceeding projections. By every measurable standard, he was succeeding brilliantly, and he had never been more miserable. His phone buzzed with a news alert, something he would normally ignore, but the words Sundarbans and conservation breakthrough caught his attention. His heart raced as he opened the article. "Revolutionary tracking technology has enabled researchers to document previously unknown tiger migration patterns in the Sundarbans, leading to enhanced protection measures." Project lead Dr. Priya Sharma credits the breakthrough to a combination of traditional field research and advanced analytics. There was a photo of Priya standing beside a government official at a press conference. She looked tired but triumphant, her familiar determination evident even through the screen. The tracking system had succeeded beyond expectations. Rajan set down his phone, a complex mix of pride and regret washing over him. He'd continued funding the project anonymously through a foundation, unable to sever that last connection completely. Later that evening, alone in his immaculate apartment, with its perfect view and emptiness that no amount of designer furniture could fill, Rajan finally confronted the truth he'd been avoiding. In trying to protect Priya from danger, he had really been trying to protect himself from the fear of losing her. His condition had been about control, not care. The realization hit him with such force that he found himself walking out onto his balcony, gulping the humid Singapore air. Below, the city pulsed with life and possibility, yet he felt disconnected. From it all, his phone rang. Vikram, calling from Bangalore. "Have you seen the news about the Sundarbans project?" his friend asked without preamble. "Just now," Rajan admitted. "She did it using our system, but she pushed it further than we thought possible." Vikram's voice held genuine admiration. "The conservation community is buzzing." "Good for her," Rajan said, meaning it despite the ache in his chest. "There's more," Vikram continued. "The system is being adopted by conservation efforts in Thailand, Nepal, and Malaysia. They want us to adapt it for different species and habitats. That's excellent news for the company," Rajan managed. A pause, then Vikram spoke more. "Gently, it's not just company news, my friend. It's her vision and your technology, working together even when you couldn't." After the call ended, Rajan remained on the balcony for hours, thinking about paths not taken and conditions that had cost him everything that mattered. Meanwhile, thousands of kilometers away, Priya sat alone in her field tent, the glow of her laptop illuminating her exhausted face. The press conference had been a triumph, but celebrations felt hollow without sharing them with the one person who would truly understand both the technological and conservation significance. She opened her email, hovering over a draft she'd written weeks ago but never sent. It contained all the things she wished she could tell Rajan about the project's success, about how she'd come to understand his fears better, about how much she missed their debates and his perspective. Instead of sending it, she closed her laptop and stepped outside. The night was alive with sounds: insects chirping, distant animal calls, leaves rustling in the gentle breeze. This was her world, the one she couldn't give up, not even for him. Yet for the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a different condition, not his adapting to her world or her to his, but creating something new together. The next morning brought unexpected news. The Malaysian Conservation Authority wanted to implement the tracking system in Taman Negara National Park, but they were struggling with technical aspects. They specifically requested both Nexus Solutions' expertise and her field experience. "They want us both," her colleague Nikhil said, showing her the email. "Technical and practical knowledge working in tandem. That would mean working with Rajan." "Again," Priya said quietly. Nikhil raised an eyebrow. "Is that a problem? It's complicated." "The best conservation work usually is," he replied. "Like the ecosystems we're trying to protect, complex, interconnected, sometimes messy." His words stayed with her as she composed a carefully professional email to Nexus Solutions, requesting their partnership on the Malaysian project. She addressed it to the company generally, not to Rajan specifically, unsure if he would even see it personally. 3 days later, she was collecting field samples near the river. A response came through on her satellite phone. Nexus would support the project. The message was formal, corporate and signed by Vikram, not Rajan. What she didn't know was that in Singapore, Rajan had made a decision of his own. After reading her project proposal, he had stepped into Vikram's office. "I want to lead the Malaysian adaptation personally," he had said without preamble. Vikram had studied him carefully. It would mean working directly with Dr. Sharma again. "I know, and possibly spending significant time in field conditions, I'm aware, with insects," Vikram had added, a slight smile playing at his lips. "I've bought industrial-strength repellent." Rajan had replied, the ghost of his old humor returning. "And I've been thinking about something you said about her vision and my technology, working together even when we couldn't. Maybe there's a lesson there." As Rajan packed for Malaysia, carefully including practical field clothes alongside his usual attire, he felt a sense of purpose that had been missing for months. He had no expectations beyond doing good work, but he hoped for a chance to show Priya that he had changed, that he understood now what he hadn't before. In the Sundarbans, Priya prepared for her own journey to Malaysia, unaware that Rajan would be there too. She packed light as always, but slipped in one impractical item, the small wooden tiger carving he had given her on their 6-month anniversary. A reminder of what was possible when different worlds found ways to connect. A new understanding: the Taman Negara research station sprawled across a clearing in Malaysia's ancient rainforest, a collection of weathered buildings that housed some of the region's most dedicated conservationists. Priya arrived first, spending 2 days getting acquainted with the local team and scouting potential sites for camera traps. She was in the main lab reviewing terrain maps when a familiar voice from the doorway made her freeze. The elevation data for the eastern sector seems to be missing. She turned slowly, finding Rajan standing there, looking both familiar and somehow changed. He wore practical field clothes instead of his usual business attire, and his normally clean-shaven face sported a short beard. Most noticeable was his demeanor, less rigid, more at ease in these surroundings than she would have expected. "Rajan," she said, recovering her composure. "Vikram didn't mention you'd be coming personally. I requested the assignment," he replied simply, setting down his equipment bag. "The terrain here presents unique challenges for the tracking system. It seemed more efficient to make adjustments on site." Efficient. The word hung between them, a reminder of their fundamental differences. Yet something in his tone lacked the old insistence on optimization above all else. "The Malaysian team will be grateful for your expertise," Priya said formally, turning back to the maps. "I have marked potential locations for the first phase of deployment." They worked in strained politeness for days, their interactions limited. 2 professional exchanges. The local team noticed the tension but respected their boundaries. What no one could miss, however, was how effectively they still worked together, despite Atrajan's technical insights complementing Priya's field. Experienced their combined approach solving problems that had stymied the project for months. 2 weeks into the deployment, a tropical storm hit the region with unexpected ferocity. The team retreated to the research station as heavy rains lashed the buildings and winds bent the surrounding trees. All field operations suspended, they found themselves confined together, the forced proximity making their careful avoidance more difficult. That evening, Priya found Rajan alone on the covered porch watching the storm. Something about his solitary figure against the dramatic backdrop compelled her to join him rather than retreat, as she had been doing. "Quite different from your Singapore view," she commented, leaning against the railing beside him. He glanced at her, surprise and something like hope flickering across his face. "How did you know I moved to Singapore?" Conservation circles talk. "Your international expansion made industry news." She paused. "Congratulations, by the way. It's what you always wanted." "Is it?" The question seemed directed more at himself than at her. They stood in silence for a moment, watching lightning illuminate the forest canopy. "I received your field reports from the Sundarbans," Rajan finally said. "The tracking system exceeded all projections. Because we designed it together," Priya acknowledged. "Your analytics, my field insights. It worked because neither approach alone would have been sufficient." The significance of her words wasn't lost on either of them. "I was wrong," Rajan said suddenly, turning to face her fully. "About the condition, about trying to change your life to fit my comfort level." Priya studied him, noticing the earnestness in his eyes, so different from the calculating look she'd grown accustomed to. "What brought this revelation?" "Seeing our work succeed without me there to control it," he admitted. "Realizing that what I admired most about you is exactly what I tried to change." He gestured to the storm-lashed forest beyond. "And honestly, 6 months of perfect order and predictability in Singapore showed me that what I thought I wanted wasn't what I needed." A particularly strong gust of wind drove rain under the porch roof, forcing them to step back toward the building. They found themselves standing closer than they had in months, close enough that Priya could see the regret etched clearly on his face. "I don't expect forgiveness," Rajan continued, "or another chance. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I didn't then." Priya was quiet for a long moment. "Do you know what these past months taught me?" she finally asked. He shook his head. "That safety isn't always about physical danger. Sometimes the safest choice emotionally is to stay within the boundaries we've created for ourselves." She took a deep breath. "I was angry at your condition because it would have required me to leave my comfort zone, but I never considered that. Loving someone might mean both of us expanding our zones, not abandoning them." "What are you saying?" Rajan asked, hardly daring to hope. "I'm saying that conditions born from fear are destructive, but expectations born from mutual growth might be necessary." She looked out at the storm, then back to him. I wouldn't give up fieldwork for you or anyone. But I've learned there's room for balance, that my dedication to conservation doesn't have to mean constant danger or isolation. The power flickered, then went out completely, leaving them in darkness, broken only by occasional flashes of lightning. In that intermittent illumination, they continued their conversation, speaking truths that had been left unsaid for too long. Been designing a portable communication system, Rajan confessed. One that would work in remote areas, allowing consistent contact without intrusive technology or infrastructure damage. For conservation work? Priya asked. For you, he said simply, or others like you, so the choice wouldn't have to be. Between doing vital work and being completely cut off from people who care about you. Another flash of lightning revealed the tears in Priya's eyes. You've been thinking about this all along. It was never about not wanting you to do your work, Rajan explained. It was the fear of not knowing. If you were safe, of being helpless, if you weren't. I handled it badly. I tried to control the situation instead of addressing the real issue, which was that loving someone who does dangerous but important work means living with uncertainty. Something I've never been good at. The storm raged on outside, but inside, something was shifting between them, not a return to what was, but the possibility of something new, something that honored both their worlds rather than requiring one to subsume the other. The next morning dawned clear and brilliant, the forest rejuvenated by the storm. The research team split up to assess damage and check on equipment. Rajan volunteered to accompany Priya to the eastern sector, where several camera traps needed verification. As they hiked through the damp forest, conversation came more easily than it had in months. They discussed the project, certainly, but also the changes in their lives since they'd parted Dragon's efforts to become more comfortable with unpredictability. Priya's recognition that some structure could enhance rather than hinder her work. Near midday, they reached a ridge overlooking a stunning valley, vibrant with life after the rain. They paused to rest, the beauty before them momentarily overshadowing the purpose of their trek. I have something for you, Rajan said, reaching into his pack. He pulled out a small device, sleek and durable looking. The prototype of that communication system I mentioned. It's solar-powered, satellite-enabled, and designed to withstand extreme conditions. Priya took it, examining the thoughtful design. You really made this? I did, he confirmed. Not as a condition, but as an offering. A bridge between our worlds. She looked up at him, a slow smile spreading across her face. I have something for you, too. From her vest pocket, she pulled out the wooden tiger carving he had given her. Long ago, I've carried it with me since, since that night. A reminder that some things are worth preserving even when they seem impossible. Rajan took the carving, his fingers brushing hers. I don't have a ring with me this time, he said softly. And I don't have conditions either. Just a question, which is, Priya asked, her heart quickening. Can two people from different worlds create something new together? Not by giving up who they are, but by growing into something more? In answer, Priya reached for his hand. I think we've already started. As they continued their work that day, and in the months that followed, they began building that new reality, one that respected both the ordered and the wild, the planned and the spontaneous. Rajan spent more time in the field discovering an unexpected affinity for the unpredictable beauty of the forests. Priya embraced some of the structure he offered, finding that it enhanced rather than limited her conservation work. Their relationship would never be simple or conventional. There would always be separations as her work took her to remote locations and his required time in urban centers. But the communication device became a symbol of their commitment to staying connected across those distances, not just technologically, but emotionally and intellectually as well. 1 year after the Malaysia project, they stood together at the edge of the Sundarbans, where they had first met. The tracking system had expanded to protect endangered species across 3 countries. Nexus had opened a conservation technology division, with Rajan splitting his time between field implementation and corporate strategy. Priya continued her field research, but also accepted a position training new conservationists, sharing her expertise while remaining true to her hands. Approach. Do you ever? Wonder what would have happened if I hadn't added that condition, Rajan asked, as they watched the sunset paint the sky in familiar colors. We might have taken a simpler path, Priya acknowledged. But I'm not sure we would have learned what we needed to learn. He nodded, understanding. Their journey had been complicated, painful at times, but necessary to reach this place of mutual respect and deeper understanding. I have a new condition, Priya said suddenly, a mischievous smile playing at her lips. Rajan raised an eyebrow, curious rather than concerned. That we never stop questioning our conditions, she explained. That we remember love isn't about making someone safe by changing them, but about making it safe for them to be exactly who they are. That, Rajan said, pulling her close, is a condition I can live with. Above them, stars began to appear in the deepening twilights, some clustered in familiar patterns, others scattered in beautiful chaos. Like their lives together, a perfect balance of order and wildness, each enhancing rather than diminishing the other.